Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. Today I have come to talk about the Force. Use the Force. Yeah, all right. So the thing is that there are forces. There are forces. There are different pressures. There are different things that are happening. In fact, when I was a young man, I used to have this idea of something called a proximity theory. And the proximity theory basically says that the things that you think about and the thing that you are and the thing that you do, it has some like mathematical formula. You could, if you measure all of the things around you and the distance between you and all of those things, then it will give you a pretty good indicator to what you are and what you do. And I gave the example of a McDonald's hamburger. So, I'm not sure that was a great example. So the idea was like if you put a McDonald's hamburger at very close proximity to your digestive system, it will influence the things that you think about. It'll influence your body weight. If you live close to your mother, then you're gonna probably spend more time with her. You're gonna listen to the things that she has to say. You may need to do some things for her. I've been traveling around the world my whole life. I lived in China for 10 years. I lived in Russia for 3 years. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a year. I've been living here in Georgia for, I don't know, two years. I was in Africa last year for 6 months. I've been going all over the place. And the thing is that like this proximity theory is serious because every time I go to a new country, I have a completely different proximity to all of the things that were arranged around me in a previous place. And I can sense the difference between countries. And I think the same thing is true about businesses. And there are forces that hold things in place. The book Create Crucial Insight talks about 3 Endeavour elements. And the first thing that people have a problem with is the word endeavor. What's an endeavor? The closest thing that people tend to use as a substitute word for endeavor, I mean, across cultures, talking to French people and talking to Russian people and talking to Chinese people and talking to Spanish people and Italian people and Portuguese people, Brazilian people, the closest word to the word endeavor seems to be effort. Because it could be a project, but a project, it has a very specific definition. It could be a program. Perhaps program is also a very close word to endeavor. So we're trying to run programs. We're trying to run projects. We're trying to run tasks. We're trying to get things done. And in general, we call these efforts endeavors. And Dr. Thomas Buchholz, he says the endeavor elements, and he identified 3 endeavor elements. So I've been teaching these endeavor elements to hundreds of people over the last several years. And the important thing for me is how people react to the meaning of this word, of these words. How do people understand endeavor elements? And then how do they interpret over a variety of different types of businesses, different types of services, different types of products, different managerial positions within a company, different ways of like positioning yourself within a company, and different ways companies position themselves within a market. So I've just been seeing all these different people from all these different positions and all these different businesses. Basically, it creates this giant proximity of things that are happening around the whole world. And since I've been traveling all over the world, then it gives me this big world view. And I guess that's what I've always wanted, was to have this perspective, to be able to see and understand. I remember when I was a young kid and I was reading the Bible, and I heard about this thing called the spirit of discernment. And I started praying to God and said, God, please give me the spirit of discernment. I wanted to understand everything, and not just knowledge, but to be able to understand where that knowledge is connected to all other things, and also the weight. When we talk about endeavor forces, they're not just ideas, but we need to understand the weight and the power, the force between things, to understand what is moving, what's holding things in place, and how to make progress. Working with real people in real situations, I've had to take the scientific 3 Endeavour elements and make a small adjustment and tell the story of a search to find the Endeavour forces. And just like in all scientific pursuits, what we do is we create a laboratory and we have all kinds of different types of machines that can measure and that can help us to look, that can identify specific things that we want to talk about and we want to break apart and we want to analyze and we want to figure out and we want to put together and we want to understand. I think after all these years, the main idea is that Tom, he does have these two things. So on the one hand, he has the Endeavour elements. And then on the other side, he has something called direct outcomes checklists. And I really like his direct outcomes checklists. But I don't really like how much time it takes for people to figure out, like, how do I select one of these? So he has like 10 or 11 direct outcomes checklists. And I've added 4 more lenses. So if we could say that these 14 things, we can call them lenses, machines, things that we use in order to analyze situations and come up with some results. But the question is, how do we select one of these 14 tools? Like, how do you know when to use an X-ray machine and when to use a CT scanner and when to use an MRI? You know, it's like the doctor has to make that decision for you because you don't know. And so really what I'm trying to do and what I've been trying to do for a very long time is to try to simplify it. And I think that I found 2 simplification methods. The first question is this a new endeavor or are you reviewing a current endeavor? All right. And because the thing is, like, yeah, new endeavors, I'll just take you step by step. We'll just go from the top and work all the way through. I have a specific process for going through all 14 lenses. Start from the top. Let's get through all of them. At the end, we're going to have a plan. But if you already have an endeavor, if you're already working toward a specific outcome, then what we're trying to do is we're trying to do some kind of, we're trying to figure out how we can improve it. We're not going from 0 to 1. We're going from 1 to bigger, stronger, faster, more interesting, more powerful, more capable of reaching increasingly amazing outcomes. And for that, I think that we can bring it down to the next line of questioning. So I need to read these. I've divided it into 4 things. One is the output review. The second one is inventory. The third is reality check. And then next round of effort. So next round of effort, that's the last one. That's like, how confident are we with the plan? So that's when you make a decision and you create a plan. Before you can make a decision and create a plan, you need to map out the situation at hand. That's called reality check. And before you can map out the situation at hand, you need to know, what are we working with in terms of how people and resources are organized? That's taking inventory. And then finally, the first thing is, what kind of output are we getting from our current people and procedures? That's output review.